All right, everybody, welcome in. This episode, we're going to talk about bounce back candidates for this season. Stick around, find out who we are going to talk about. There's going to be some good names in there, so stick around, and we'll get started with Jonathan's first pick.
All right, hey everybody. My first pick is going to be Christian Kirk. He was about the number 47 wide receiver last year, and Calvin Ridley was in town. Now he went to Tennessee. Opens up a lot of targets. I think Calvin Ridley had about 136 targets last year. So I'm not saying he's going to get all of them because that just doesn't make sense. But I'm not really worried about Gabe Davis coming in, and I just think he's the random guy. He doesn't add much value or anything to worry about to me. They got Brian Thomas Jr. in the draft. I like him, but rookies usually don't come onto the scene incredibly fast. So I don't think he has too much to worry about there. The year before, he was the number 11 wide receiver. I don't think he's going to get all the way back up there, but I think he'll probably be a number 3, a solid number 3, maybe a high end 2 with all the volume. It's going to be him and Ingram a lot, I think. And I like him as my first candidate.
Yeah, I like Christian Kirk. I think Brian Thomas will come on eventually. Probably second half of the season, you'll see him getting a little more.
I don't know when their bye week is, but usually that's whenever they start getting more and more involved in the offense.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but Kirk is a good pick. I think that he's going to be Trevor Lawrence's comfort zone. Him and Evan Ingram. I think. I mean, he could easily finish in the high end wide receiver 2 if he's their number 1 all year. I don't see him getting up to wide receiver 11, like you said. I think it's a little too high of a zone for him. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to spread the ball around. They have ETN coming out of the backfield, also catching passes. So it's a solid first pick. I like it.
I like them as a stack too. I know we're not talking about stacks, but they're both going in a range where I like to get them because Christian Kirk's going fairly late. I think he's worth the pick, taking the risk on.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go. So my first pick, we talked a little bit about him in the sleeper show that we did, me and Riley. Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle's going off the board at wide receiver 15, overall 28. Had a rough year last year dealing with injuries. But even with those injuries, still stacked up over 1,000 yards. When on the field, he commanded a 23% target share. It was 8th in the NFL in yards per route run and 2nd in route win percentage. Hill's still there. He's going to be the alpha. There's no denying that. But they can coexist. 2 years ago, they combined for 194 receptions, 3,066 yards, and 15 touchdowns. I know there's some more weapons in town since that season, but they can still coexist, and Waddle can be that high end wide receiver 2. Maybe even sneak into the wide receiver 1 range if they throw the ball enough this season. And not to mention, they just paid him as a wide receiver 1, $28.25 million a year. They haven't. It is. It's crazy. They have Hill's on the last year of his contract, so who knows where that leads. I think Waddle's going to have a big bounce back this year, as long as he can stay healthy and on the field, and as long as Tua can stay healthy and on the field, because the backup situation always worries me there in Miami.
Yeah, I think Hill has this year and next year on his contract. I'm not completely sure, but
I believe this year's his last year, because I know last year he said when his contract was up he was going to retire. I know that seems to be changing a little bit now. He's looking for another contract.
I don't necessarily believe that. I hope not, at least because I have him on a few dynasty teams. But
it's getting close to time to start unloading him on dynasty teams, because you're either gonna ride him out till he's gone, or you're gonna get some value while he's good.
Yeah. I've seen a stat that said that this year for Jaylen Waddle was his best yards per catch, I think, in his career. So he didn't have as much production because he was like the wide receiver 7 or something one year. I
Yep.
think his sophomore year.
Yeah,
But
2 years ago.
yeah, but this was his best year as far as like efficiency goes. I
Yeah,
haven't watched a few games, but
and you hear that stat of him and Hill combining for 194 receptions and 3,066 yards. You think that's a majority of Hill, but Waddle had 1,400 yards that year.
yeah,
So it was almost a 1A 1B type situation. They kind of split down the middle.
yeah.
So
And
I
he's
really
crazy fast too. Like everybody talks about Hill. I mean, everybody on that team's track speed, but
mm-hmm.
Waddle's
you
definitely
can't
nothing to sleep on.
you can't guard them both.
Yeah.
So it's that's crazy. Team is crazy. The talent they have on the offensive side of the ball is just insane, and Mike McDaniel knows how to use them too. So
Unless they're in cold weather.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to your next pick.
My next one's gonna be Kyle Pitts. He had over 1,000 yards his rookie year. I think he was tight end 7 that year with Matt Ryan. And everybody knows the garbage quarterback play that they've had since then. Arthur Smith just got fired. I've been hoping that happened all year. I bought Drake London and Kyle Pitts in some of my dynasty leagues just to prepare for that, but that's a different thing. Anyway, T.J. Hawkinson has about 130 targets the past 2 years on the Vikings, and his quarterback was Kirk Cousins, and now that's going to be Kyle Pitts' quarterback. New scheme, new everything. I know he's coming off an Achilles tear, which is kind of scary, but I really like Kyle Pitts this year, especially where he's going. I think he's tight end 6 or 7 off the board behind like the big 5. I think it's like the big 5, and then you got Kelsey and Pitts, but I really like him. I think he had 110 targets his first year, and then the ACL tear, and then 90 targets this past year. And if he's anywhere near what he was at his rookie year, like anywhere between 110 or 130, I think he's going to return pretty good value. He's also like 6'6". He's an incredible athlete, so he's just a huge ass red zone weapon.
Yeah, I really like this pick. Kyle Pitts was one of my favorite bounce back candidates this year. I actually contemplated picking him as one of mine, but Zach Robinson, the new offensive coordinator in Atlanta, has already come out and said that they plan on using Pitts as not just a tight end, but a wide receiver as well.
Yeah.
Zach Robinson's coming out of that Rams Sean McVay offense.
Yeah.
So you can expect more of a high passing volume offense. They ranked
no more Jonnu Smith either.
Yep. Well, no more Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
They ranked 25th in 2023 in passing attempts per game. You can easily expect that to go up into probably the top half of the league, I would say.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of people are expecting this bounce back, so you're really not getting much of a discount on Pitts this year.
No, I agree with that.
With where he finished this year. But bounce back wise, I definitely expect it. I expect him to be right around that top 5 tight end area.
Yeah, I think it has to be this year because people have been saying it every year since his rookie year, and it's either put up or shut up time now. You got another quarterback coming, so if you don't, everybody kept using the excuse of like, Desmond Ridder or Arthur Smith or whatever, but now you can't have those excuses. You got Kirk Cousins, you got essentially a better offensive team than it was last year or the year before. So
yeah. I'll move on to my next guy, Naji Harris, ADP of RB20. He's going off the board at 69 overall. Biggest positive here is Matt Canada is gone. That guy was a plague in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They got Arthur Smith, which we just talked about, but at the same time, Arthur Smith is good for Naji Harris. Arthur Smith's going to want to run the ball 50 to 55% of the time. And the defense in Pittsburgh is solid. So it should allow them to run a lot. Naji finished the season last year. His last 3 games, he had 72 carries, 312 yards. This year, he's playing for a contract as well. And the word from the beat reporters there is he's shedding pounds and getting into shape.
15 pounds he lost.
Yeah, which is really, really good news. Hopefully he gets the carries. Hopefully he carries the bulk of the load there over Jaylen Warren. But where he's going is a steal if he performs anywhere where he's capable of performing. Getting
you could
him
get him as your third RB.
Yeah, if you take pretty much 3 running backs, 3 of the first 4 rounds, yeah, you could get Naji in that range. But yeah, I'm willing to take a couple wide receivers early and use those later picks and grab Naji as one of my running backs. Take that chance.
Mm-hmm.
But Naji, I think he is primed for a bounce back this year. He's going to want that contract next year, whether it's with the Steelers or whether it's with somebody else. And this is going to be the season that's going to get him that contract. But he's going to have that opportunity in the Arthur Smith offense, running the ball a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like it's a little bit of karma because I kept hoping that Arthur Smith was going to get fired, and I'm a Steelers fan. So then he went from the Falcons to the Steelers, and I was like, well, damn, I wish he would have just stayed on the Falcons if that's where he's going to end up. But yeah, I like the Naji pick, but I think a lot of people will kind of avoid it just because of Jaylen Warren. You can get Jaylen Warren. I don't know what round.
It's like 2 rounds later.
Yeah. So some people might want that discount because it'll probably be like a 60-40, 60 or 55-45, 70-30, whatever the split is. I don't think it's going to be that huge of a gap in the workload.
Oh yeah, I don't either. It was a big disappointment last year. There's so much hype around Bijan and all that, and then Tyler Algier comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So that is the downside is you're playing that Russian roulette, taking the chance on Harris, hoping that he is getting the bulk of the carries, and Arthur Smith could just do the complete opposite and give Jaylen Warren the bulk of the carries.
Yeah, or even worse, Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, that's another thing that scares me. Him coming from the Falcons, are they going to try to use him on the goal line?
Yeah, because he's pretty damn big. I mean, Najee's pretty big too, but why else would you bring him?
Yeah, so there's a lot of worry there, but I think he's primed for a bounce back. He finished the season.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
He finished the season strong, so I feel he can build off of that, and with the losing the 15 pounds and getting into better shape, I think is a positive for him as well.
Definitely. He forgot what I was about to say, but they drafted a lineman in the first round. I think they had pick 14 or something in the NFL draft, so that's going to help the run game and the pass game.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. We'll move on to your third pick.
Okay. Garrett Wilson is going to be my last one.
Okay.
It's all health dependent upon Aaron Rodgers, but hopefully he doesn't go down on the 4th play this year.
Yeah.
That would be really big because the Jets had arguably the worst quarterback play in the league last year. And Garrett Wilson was drafted in pretty much the same spot that he's being drafted now, in the hopes that Aaron Rodgers comes back, and he's still Aaron Rodgers. He won Rookie of the Year in 2022, and then this past year he had like 150 targets his rookie year with Joe Flacco and Zach Wilson and all kind of random bums, and then he had almost 170 last year. And if he can get that again this year from Aaron Rodgers, I think that would be really good because he barely passed 1,000 yards last year, and he had 3 touchdowns. I think he had he had 1048 yards, I think, and then 3 touchdowns. And then the year before he had 4 touchdowns. So it's not a lot of touchdowns, but all the years with Devontae Adams being crazy good on the Packers, it was prime Aaron Rodgers, but They also signed Tyron Smith from the Cowboys.
Yep.
So they're clearly trying to make some O-line improvements to protect Rodgers. And they did sign Mike Williams too from the Chargers, but I don't think he's something like insanely like anything to worry about. I think it's actually kind of good because he's injury prone and he's pretty damn old at this point. He's a jump ball wide receiver, which kind of complements Garrett Wilson being the intermediate underneath guy. He's also a deep threat too, but he's mainly going to work in that intermediate area, I think.
I think Malachi Corley will take more receptions away from Garrett Wilson than Mike Williams will. I think Mike Williams is just more of a decoy than anything for the deep balls.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like Garrett Wilson. He's, I think, my number 6 wide receiver this year. I have him up there just behind.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think he could finish, if everything goes well, I think he could finish in the top 7, top 5.
Oh, he could finish. Yeah, for sure. He can finish top 5 if everything goes well.
Yeah.
But I'll move on to my last pick, Joe Burrow, ADP QB7, overall 59, subpar 2023 season for Burrow. Dealing with injuries. The calf injury in training camp last year caused the slow start. He looked rough in his first 4 games, which led the Bengals to that rough 1-3 start. His previous 2 years, when healthy, Burrow went for 4,475 yards and 35 touchdowns, and then 4,611 yards and 34 touchdowns, both elite seasons. Both, I think, would have been leading, if not close to leading, the league last year. I think Tua he led the league in passing last year with the yards. Last year, though, and after those first 4 weeks, in weeks 5 through 9, before injuring his wrist, he went for 1,480 yards and 12 touchdowns. That's a 17-game pace of 5,032 yards and 51 touchdowns. So Burrow is still an elite quarterback. Word is he looks bigger and stronger than he has in the past. Coming out of the Bengals camp, Higgins is going to be back this year, healthy.
Hopefully.
Hopefully he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
He's playing for a contract. You got the addition of Jermaine Burton, who's going to take that Tyler Boyd role. I like him as a late grab in drafts. And with a subpar defense and downgrades, and the downgrade to the running game, Burrow should have another elite year as long as he stays healthy. The only reason I don't have him ranked higher is just because the running quarterbacks, in my opinion, just they're taking over fantasy football.
Yeah, he has very little rushing upside.
Yeah, so it takes a lot for a passing quarterback to get up in that top 5 range, or a pocket passer, I should say.
He would have to almost have a MVP kind of year to produce like that for fantasy.
Yeah, and it's one of those years that he's already had right around 4,500 yards, 35 touchdowns. We'll put him in the top 5, which he is fully capable of. We've seen it twice already. And he was on pace to do it again last year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still a little high for me, draft wise, but I see him bouncing back from last year. It's just inevitable for him.
Yeah, I really like Joe Burrow, obviously because I'm from Louisiana, so I have that LSU bias. But I think because I was talking to you about doing T. Higgins too.
Mm-hmm.
I think overall there's going to be a pretty good offense. Higgins is fighting for a contract as long as he can stay healthy. I think he's another candidate, but Burrow, they did lose a lineman, which is kind of scary. But like you mentioned, the loss of Joe Mixon,
mm-hmm.
I was going to bring it up if you didn't, but they're going to have to pass more. They also lost their OC. He went to Tennessee, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Callahan.
I don't know how that's going to work out, but Another thing is their division. Steelers have a good defense. The Ravens have an elite defense. Browns have a good defense. The Bengals defense sucks, so that's kind of good for fantasy because you're gonna have to air it out more.
Yeah, that division was out of control last year. They all finished above 500, and the Bengals finished last.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
Mm-hmm. So I think it was like the first time. I can't remember how many years they said it. It's been a long time since that's happened before.
Yeah, they have arguably one of the better 1-2 punches in the NFL too at wide receiver.
Oh yeah,
Chase and Higgins. So
yeah,
that's really good for Burrow.
Yep, and the Chase Burrow connection. I meant it's always going to be elite as long as they're together.
Mm-hmm. I think him and Kyler are going pretty close to each other in the 7th round. I think. So if you did go Chase early, that's another stack that I kind of like is getting Burrow.
Yeah.
In the 7th, but
yeah, that's pretty much it for our bounce back candidates. I wanted to talk a little bit. Did you see the news on Jordan Addison?
Yeah, he got arrested.
Yeah, suspicion of DUI. This is rough for him because if anybody remembers last year, before the season started, he got pulled over for going extremely high speeds too when he first got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't a good look for him with the NFL. If it comes out that it is a DUI, there may be a suspension possibly happening. So it's something to keep an eye on. But if Hawkinson can get healthy, I think that helps him a little bit, gives him a few more targets. Justin Jefferson's always going to get his. But it all depends on which quarterback that's coming from.
I think I'd try to avoid everybody on the Vikings except Jay Jettis for a little bit because, I mean, Addison had a very productive rookie year, but that was with Kirk Cousins, and I'm not taking anything away from him, but he did have 10 touchdowns. So
the only two I'm Jefferson for sure. I would take in the right spot. Maybe Aaron Jones, because
I do like Aaron Jones.
Just because of the flyer. Yeah, because of the quarterback play. I think he'd be the only other person I'd take a shot on that offense.
I do like Hawkinson, but he's not going to be back to full speed, I think, until
they're saying it could be like
quarter into the season or halfway through the season.
Yeah, they said it could be like halfway through the season before he even sees the field.
Yeah.
So, and where he's going in drafts, there's no way I'm touching him for that price.
Yeah.
So
if you had a good enough first draft up until that point, or I guess if you have an IR spot, you could take him. I think he's probably worth that.
Yeah.
Put him in your IR spot, but you kind of hurt yourself a little bit by not taking somebody else.
Yeah, you're wasting value at that point. It's not worth it. But all right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Hit the subscribe button in the bottom corner, and give us a comment. Let us know what you think, and we will see you guys soon.